Good morning, everyone. Camera wobbles a bit. All right, hopefully that's better. Here we go. Let go of it, it doesn't wobble. Yay! I have people who have joined me. Thank you so much for coming and spending part of your morning. My favorite. So, this morning I've got a fancy, let's hold it up without spilling it. Hey, good morning! It's been a while. So this is my Aqua Vitro mug. Today we are talking about dosing, what you dose your aquarium with. Mostly going to be a saltwater oriented talk. We'll be doing a dosing freshwater tank a little bit later, but I'm super familiar with dosing saltwater and reef aquariums, so I figured that's where we would start out because I've got a bit more learning to do before I feel comfortable enough to lead a talk when it comes to dosing freshwater tanks. Now, there's a lot of different products that are out on the market, a lot of different dosers, a couple different ways that you can do it. I'm curious to know what you guys dose, how you guys dose your tanks. Do you have a dosing pump and a reservoir set up? Do you dose by hand? How do you do it? What products do you use? How often do you test? So tell me about it in the comments. I would love to have you interact in this conversation. Coffee. So, I made a list. I like my lists. And things change all the time. So, good morning. Things are different than when I used to be an aquarium technician, even just 3 years ago. The products that are out on the market that you can dose your tank with might even be a little bit different now than they used to be. So, like I said, I went online and I pulled some of the top dosers for aquariums. I don't have a doser on I've got a Nano Reef. It's only 20 gallons, but I'm pretty good. I check my levels every week. Usually on my Friday is a Saturday, so when I get off work on my Friday, I come home and I do all my tests for the week, see where my tank is sitting at. Do I need to do a water change that week? Do I need to dose stuff? And then I'll go from there. But you may do things differently, and that's what I'm curious to know. Let's see. Okay, freshwater only here, daily dose. Oh, daily dose. Okay, good. Always check your fish. That's a good way to know if your fish are healthy. If you have an eye on your fish every day, then if something's wrong, you're gonna know it right off. New York Gold, Dr. Ted, Bonkers. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm really excited. This is one of the biggest YouTube chats that we've had in a while. So, dosing pumps that are available out on the market. eShops, GHL, Bulk Reef Supply, Bubble Magus, those are a couple big ones. And one that I see a lot that have a big presence at shows, Neptune. They're those fun orange colored ones, real pretty. Jabo and Aquamedic are other ones that are pretty big that are out on the market right now. If you go do a search on Google, a lot of those will pop up. Now, they have there's a couple different ways of dosing. So one of those, I don't remember which one I mentioned, you can connect it to your Wi-Fi and like mess with it on your phone. How cool is that? Kind of like my little light that I've got on my AI Prime. I can mess with it on my phone. I don't have to worry about it if I'm not here, whatever. So with dosing, you have your pump. The pumps, it depends on how you set it up. It'll pump X amount into your tank, X however often that you tell it to. You can also buy reservoirs. So this is the example that I was using for the live. So here I've got Prime. I'm not gonna dose Prime, but this is just a bottle that I had laying around. I think the similar Seachem products or Reef Fusion 1 and 2, we used to use those a lot. So you've got your bottles. You just pour the whole bottle into those reservoirs if you have the reservoirs, or you can stick the little hoses or the little tubes into these bottles and not even have to worry about a reservoir. Or you can, like I do, measure it out. Most of these, a lot of the companies, like on the back of them, the instructions, you unscrew the lid and you can dose using the cap that's on the bottle. A lot of them will tell you like X number of, like up to the second line is going to be however much, so you can dose that way. That's typically what I do in my aquariums here, just because I don't have a doser. My tank's not big enough. It doesn't really need a doser. So how do you dose your tanks? Let's see. I know manufacturer needs to build. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. So what do you dose? I know a bunch of you are freshwater people, so we'll be having a freshwater chat a little bit later, but please feel free to stay and hang out. I want to learn from you what you dose, and so maybe I can be more successful leading a conversation on freshwater dosing, like planet tanks especially. So I used to have a freshwater tank, but I was never that much of an advanced hobbyist that I felt comfortable dosing stuff, so I kind of did the bare minimum, I guess. Dose bacteria into freshwater ponds. Yeah, that's a good one. I've heard of that. Especially like spring and fall when it comes to koi ponds. I've done a lot of dosing for that. Yep. So when it comes to, in my personal aquarium, when it comes to things that I check on a regular basis, and this is pretty common throughout, I guess like the saltwater hobby, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium are the three big ones that people typically test. One of you guys in the Instagram chat brought up a good point. Don't dose stuff to your tank unless you know you need it. So test for it first, and then dose if you need to test it. Now, yep, different tank, different needs. That's true. So a lot of times the salt that you buy for your aquarium is going to have a lot of what your corals will need. It's going to have a lot of those naturally occurring ions and minerals and stuff that are found in saltwater out in the ocean. They're going to already have that packaged in. So somebody on Instagram mentioned, if you're regularly keeping up on your water changes, you might not have to dose a lot. So that's one point for keeping up with water changes. But I know people do have tanks that are slammed full of corals, that those corals are utilizing a lot of stuff in the saltwater. And that's kind of where it comes in when you would need to dose. So, like I said, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, those are the three big ones that people typically test and dose for. I might test alkalinity in Frank's tank. Maybe, I'll test that and calcium maybe every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. I'm not super worried about it because his tank stays pretty stable. But I do want to take a look at the calcium because I've got a lot of big hermit crabs in here. I want to make sure those hermit crabs, there's enough calcium in the water for them to use in their exoskeleton formation. So that's pretty important. But depending on who you are, where you are, at work, we have a coral tank that I'm in charge of maintaining. And when I first started a couple weeks back, they told me they were dosing strontium. And I wasn't really sure. I've heard of people dosing strontium, but they weren't really testing for strontium. So I was like, I don't know. Do I want to keep dosing with this? So we've ordered a test kit. So before we continue to dose strontium, we're going to test, see if we need to dose for strontium. Strontium kind of acts like calcium. It's important when it comes to exoskeleton formation. Let's see. Hey, thanks for joining. I appreciate you coming in and spending part of your time with us. I'm really enjoying this chat this morning. It's lively. I like it. Ooh. Yes. Hand dose strontium based on test. Just change food to probiotics. Oh, yes, thank you. I love probiotics. Well, okay, I love probiotics. Frank loves probiotics. I've used a couple different of our different foods. So I've got Algae Max and Thera A and probiotics. And probiotics Frank goes nuts. He'll like actually fight the other fish off for the probiotics. So that's one of my favorites. And I've got a Randall's Goby, my reef tank, Goby 1 Kenobi. He will actually come out for the probiotics. Usually he just kind of sits in his hole and like waits for food to fall in there. But when I feed probiotics, he'll just like, oh hey, I've got to go out and get that before the shrimp steals it. Yes. They're really exciting. So a little bit off course, but that's okay. Probiotics, one of the cool things, oh shoot, my jar is in the other room. So with probiotics, it's got a phosphate eating bacteria in there as well. So it's gonna help with your phosphates. I haven't personally tested it, but I've had people that have started using it and said their phosphates were like 0.6 and then went down to 0.2 within like a week and a half of using probiotics. So that's pretty exciting. All citron gobies are so cute. So in case you didn't know, I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again because I think it's exciting. Our probiotics, the way we make it, it's a two-part process. So first part, we extrude our pellets the normal way with the heated process. And then after those are extruded, we grind them all back up and then add the probiotics and then re-extrude it cold. Usually, if you add probiotics and then you extrude it hot, it's going to kill off all those bacterial cultures. So that's why we do it cold. And as we're doing it cold, it helps to keep them in the pellet. So when your fish eat it, it's actually going to get in your gut. It's not like a coating on the outside that kind of schleps off in the water. It'll actually get into your fish's gut and help their gut. Isn't that right, Frank? Frank doesn't care. He just wants more food. So, I'm trying to think. What else were we talking about? I got distracted. Things that you dose your aquarium. So, thank you. This is Frank. He's a ham. He likes the camera. He was, I don't want to say my first real saltwater fish, but like I set up a tank for Frank. When I bought Frank, I kind of like stalked him at the store for like a week and a half before I purchased him. I was like, I want to make sure I get a good one. And I came in, like the last time that I came in to check on him and see if he was doing good, there's like, this is terrible. There's one dead cowfish on the bottom of the tank. There's one that's up in the corner that's kind of like looking not so hot. And then there's another dead, like almost dead off to the side. And Frank's over there just like harassing it and trying to pick at it. And I was like, oh no, that's not good. Like one, they are said to have a toxin that will wipe out the system. I've never seen it. But so like that's not good that he's in there. But I like that he's a fighter. Like of all of the ones that are in there looking rough, this guy. So thus came Frank. Frank is a fighter. He's a trooper. He's been through a lot. He moved across country in a 5-gallon bucket in the back of my car. No stress, just I need some more food. So he's a trooper. Let's see, I got some more messages. Oh, thank you. Fish, aquariums, they're my life. I do that here. It's a paid job. I have another full-time job. I'm an aquarist at a public aquarium. It's a hobby. It's a lifestyle. So, yeah. Let's see. Get so distracted. Talk about Frank. I'm just like, oh, what? Oh, let's talk about Frank. Let's see. Here's a couple interesting ones. So, yeah, make sure that if you're dosing something in your tank, you are testing before you dose it so that you know you need it. It was interesting. I used to work at a local fish store here in Las Vegas, and people would come in there like, what can I buy to put in my tank? Like, which of these products should I put in my tank? I'm like, what do you need it for? And they're like, well, I just need it to make my corals look better. I'm like, well, what's wrong? Like, I'm not going to sell you something if I don't know what you need it for. Like, if you don't need it, don't need to put it in. And a good example of that is iodine. So iodine, organisms, including us, need like trace amounts of iodine. Like it's important. Good example, thyroid. Sharks, like us, have thyroids, and you need a specific amount of iodine in the system to make sure that that stuff is running functional, like functioning like it's supposed to. And if it's not in there, you could have issues. So some people might dose iodine, but test to make sure you need it first, because if your iodine levels are already good and then you dose it, it could become toxic. You don't want that in your tank. Okay, let's see. Yes, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Harkins brings up a good point. Know what your water volume is, and that's the key to dosing. And so, especially if you've got biocubes, I think are a little bit different, because I feel like they calculate the volume for like a biocube and the filtration section of it. But so like Frank's tank is a 75-gallon tank, right? But I've also got I believe it's a 20-gallon sump. It might be a 40-gallon sump underneath. So if I'm dosing for 75-gallon tank, I'm not dosing enough, because I've got all that water volume underneath here. I'm pointing to this and you can't see it. So when I make sure 75 gallons on top, probably 20, 40 on bottom, make sure that I'm dosing to that volume, not just the volume that the tank is. Excellent, excellent point. And then retest. You know, I give it like 12 to 24 hours and then retest, see how your water parameters are looking after you've dosed. That way, you know, it's not a week between your dosings. You can know if what you dosed is good and is being utilized and is in the system. And something else, another tip, when you dose and add stuff to your system, put it in like right near the return pump, because that way the pump is going to do all the mixing for you. It's going to like push all that water out into your tank. It's not just going to like stay in one spot and not get mixed in. And you got to be careful too. Some of the products that are out there, like I know I mentioned Refusion 1 and 2, you can't dose those together, because those will precipitate out and cause your pumps all sorts of issues. Yep, I didn't, yeah, you're right. So, yeah, make sure that you factor in the sand that you've got in your tank and the rocks. So I was thinking about not factoring enough, but rocks and stuff take up volume and water space. Good point. This is a great conversation. I love it. Let's see. Yeah, I kind of touched on it, but I'd say it again. If you think you need to dose something, obviously test for it, but a lot of times certain corals or even macroalgae, if it's not coloring the way it's supposed to be, or it's not growing like it should be, you know, that could be a sign that something's off, that one of your nutrients is not where it's supposed to be. So that's a good indicator sign of whether or not you need to test, because test kits can be pretty expensive, especially some of these like smaller like trace element tests. They're not always readily available. So hand dose iron for your Refugium. Yep, all my tanks, when I dose them, they're all hand dosed. Let's see. I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm trying to like stay on track and then like read these side conversations, and I like it though, because it's got places I'm like, oh, I need to go check that out once I get done. So, well, I guess I will finish up, because I've got my little note cards of stuff. Make sure I don't forget to talk about anything. So that's about all that I've got on my little note cards. But anybody that's watching this after we've been live, be curious, please comment. See right there, comment, and let us know if you have a dosing pump and a dosing system on your aquarium, what system you're using, and also what you dose and why. So, thank you guys so much. I've enjoyed the conversation and the chat. It's nice to talk with people and have people interact as I'm chatting. It's not just me staring at a screen. Hope you guys have a great week. We will be back next week, same place, same time. See you then.